There was a desert wind blowing that night. I was starving, so I poured myself a large scotch. I'm an occasional drinker, the kind of guy who goes out for a beer and wakes up in Singapore with a full beard. That's another story. She was a blonde to make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window. From 30 feet away, she looked like a lot of class. From 10 feet away, she looked like a lot of trouble. She gave me a smile I could feel in my hip pocket. She said she was a sommelier. I didn't know what that meant. She asked me if I wanted a job. She had a map, the Rioja Scrolls, she said, but it looked like Rio J to me. I collect blondes and bottles, but only whiskey and beer. She said it held the ultimate secret to wine. She had an exam to pass and time was running out. I had a bad feeling in my guts, and this broad was making me nervous with her fancy wine talk. She had $1,000 in a suitcase that needed a home, and I needed to pay my rent. It was a wine trade job, all right. I hate the wine trade. Kind of place they stick a knife in your back and then arrest you for carrying a concealed weapon. I knew I needed help from the only family in town who gets respect. Masters of wine, they called themselves. Less than 300 in the world. Sounded like a load of baloney to me, but I was out of options. I needed a drink, I needed a vacation, and I needed that cash. What I had was a hat, a map, and a corkscrew. I picked them up and walked out to make that phone call.
Come in.
Mr. Knock, Mr. Wildman, I've heard a great deal about you both.
Have you?
Masters of wine, expert tasters, and how does one say this? Obtainers of rare artifacts?
Well, that's one way of saying it. Of course, sit down. You'll be more comfortable.
Now then, you understand this is all in strictest confidence. But about a week ago, a lady came into my office with a suitcase full of money and a lot of questions about wine. She kept calling herself a sommelier. Anyways, she had a map. Kept talking about something called the Rioja Scrolls.
God, it's the map of the scrolls.
Does that mean anything to you?
Well, the Rioja Scrolls are part of wine trade legend. And every student knows the story, but no one really believes it. The Rioja Scrolls are said to contain the ultimate secret to wine. But if they ever existed, which I doubt, they haven't been seen for centuries.
Sorry, but what exactly do you mean by the ultimate secret of wine?
Well, it's the knowledge of everything. Grapes, the producers, the soil types, the appellations.
And tasting skills.
Exactly, tasting skills. The ability to identify wine blind with 100% accuracy. To be able to distinguish Bordeaux from Burgundy, 45s from 47s, Chablis from Chardonnay. Even the knowledge of what makes great Rioja so long-lived.
Well then, how does one go about finding these scrolls?
Well, the answer's on the map. You see, Rioja is in northern Spain. Now, according to legend, the secret to the scrolls can be found by following the ancient pilgrim route, the Camino de Santiago, which passes through Rioja, here. And by answering the riddles on the map, it leads us to a city with the cathedral. And what you do is, you stand in the right place at the right time of day and answer the final riddle on the map. And it leads you to the last resting place of the Rioja Scrolls and the ultimate secret to wine.
Mon Dieu.
Yes, that's exactly what the French would say if they were found.
To say, I'm beginning to understand my client's interest in all of this.
Oh yes, it's said that the student who carries the scrolls into an exam is invincible.
Well, it's all well and good, but what about these riddles? Bibere cataracta.
Well, bibere is to drink or to imbibe. And cataracts, of course, are some sort of waterfall. Or...
It's drink the waterfall.
So, for years, men have searched for the lost secret of wine. A wild goose chase? Maybe, but the money was real and these guys seemed to believe what they were saying. The only thing to do was follow the map and go to Spain. There's a very definite, trail marked onto it, starting with like Bibere Catharacta.
Well, as my colleague explained back in London, the map is actually the north coast of Spain. And this shows the Camino de Santiago, the ancient pilgrim trail, along which the riddles to the Rioja Scrolls are kept. Looking at the first riddle, it seems to me in Latin to say, drink the waterfall. Now, this is a northern part of Spain. There are some rivers. It could mean we have to find a waterfall. It could mean it's a body of water. We really don't know until we get there, but that's what the first riddle means.
In search of the answer to that riddle, these two took me to Bodega Zamestoy. Certainly pretty, but I could see no waterfalls. This was going to be a big fat waste of time. Of course, we still had to taste the local wine.
So this is Chacolí, the white wine from the Basque Country in northern Spain. It's light in alcohol and it tastes of salty water, and the reason is, there's the sea. The salt water comes over, lands on the vines, and makes the wine taste absolutely fantastic. And this is how they serve it in the bars in San Sebastian. To romper the bubbles, they say, to break the bubbles and make it more refreshing. Yeah. So there you go. Taste of Chacolí, taste of the salty sea. Cheers, guys.
Can you say romper again?
Romper stomper.
Romper! Romper les bulles! You'd say if you're French, obviously.
Okay, well, quite a lot of wine was tasted before we turned the cameras on. There was a guide on hand to show us around and take us down the cellars. They had more steel tanks there than United Dairies, but there was still no sign of a waterfall. We weren't going to answer anything here except, well, maybe learn more about Chacolí and this winery.
We can taste it.
Chacolí tastes pretty good. So, what are we drinking?
So the drink we've just been having is Chacolí, one of the most unique wines in Europe. The place where we are is in the small fishing village of Cateria. Now, in this region in northern Spain, the Basque Country, they do things differently. They've got their own government, they've got their own language, which dates back to the Stone Age. They even have their own blood type. Their blood type is different to most people in the world, and it's because they've been isolated. They resisted the Romans, they resisted the Moors, they've kept their own identity. And this even extends to the grape varieties. So the white wine is made from a grape called Hondurubi Zuri. It's unique, it more or less translates as the white grape. They also have a rosé wine made from Hondurubi Belzer, which roughly translates as the red grape. Very simple. The wines are delicious. We've just been told it's a simple wine, it's a refreshing wine, it's the perfect match with seafood, but most importantly, it speaks to where it comes from.
These tumblers, by the way, are the standard Chacolí glasses. However, around here you don't just drink from a glass. This is hardcore tasting. That's a waterfall. Time to get back to the sunshine.
So gentlemen, I think we've discovered the answer to the riddle of Drink the Waterfall. It's time to celebrate.
I think we might.
Can you do the honours?
I think I can.
I agree with that.
Now, let's see if you can do it.
Deep in the Australian bush, water is a precious thing. Finding it can be the difference between life and death. In a hot, dry climate, a man will drink almost anything to survive. Ooh, crikey. Look what I've just spotted. It's a bottle of wild Rioja. Look how the clever little bugger's hiding under those leaves and grass. He's camouflaging himself from the people like me and to stay out of the midday sun. First of all, before you can drink it, you gotta catch it. That means sneaking up on the little thing, usually getting it from behind. Got the little bugger! Come on! Jesus! Right. Okay. You might not do this at home, but down the back of these things is a thing called the punt. And if you get your thumb right up his bum, it'll actually stop him from moving. And once you've slowed him down, stroke it gently. Calms the little bugger right down. It's like putty in your hands. Now, of course, once we've caught him, we've got to open him up. In a place like this, we don't have any corkscrews. But I've got a little bit of Australian bushcraft. It helps me get out of sticky situations like this. Watch this. Put him inside your shoe and you knock the guts out of him with a few sharp taps. Here we come. So there you go. Little bugger's been uncorked. A trick like that can keep a grown man alive for 2 or maybe 3 days in the Australian bush. Cheers. Oh, you little ripper.
What about these riddles? Vigilemnus dormientis rex. I mean, Rex, I assume, is king.
Well, it is. It's a royal statement. Vigilentus, dormientus. Well, dormientus, of course, means to rest or to sleep or to lie down. And,
so this riddle here is a riddle written underneath some tall churches. And by the look of it, where it's positioned on the Camino de Santiago, I would say this is the wine region of Rioja.
Well, I think it's consistent with Rioja as well.
And the phrase says, "Wake the sleeping kings." I've got no idea what that means until we get there.
So, off we go to Rioja, the name on the enigmatic scrolls. We went to one of the oldest and most traditional wineries in the region, Bodega Rafael Lopez de Heredia, Vina Tondonia. My guides went to meet the current owner, Maria Jose Lopez de Heredia.
My name is Maria Jose Lopez de Heredia.
Yes, I said that.
And the name of our company is Rafael Lopez de Heredia, the name of my great-grandfather, and Viña Tondonia, the name of our most important vineyard. And we are the third oldest family-owned company in La Rioja, in Haro. And we are known as a company for being very traditional and very odd, because we make the wine like it was made 100 years ago. So should we go and taste some wine?
Yes, please.
Let's go. So this is called the boiler room, or our fermentation building. And these vats are 145, 150 years old. They are made of French, Spanish, American, and Yugoslavian oak. And they are used for fermenting My great-grandfather, the first time he filled one, he wrote number 1 with grapes from Tempranillo, Garnacho, Graciano, number 2. And this means that in 134 vintage, we have filled 9,805 times these vats. And they are used for fermenting and also for storing wine, because the oak needs to be always wet and they need to be full. We maintain them very well, but we have maintained them in use for all our life.
And then so after the wine is fermented and kept in these for 1 year, where does it go next?
It goes to the barrels, to the barrel aging.
Great, can we see those?
Yes, of course.
Let's go.
So we are standing in the cellar for barrel aging. That is what we do, crianza, after the first fermentation. We have, all in all, you can see plenty of barrels all over the winery, 13,000 barrels. It's part of the history of Rioja, aging wine during very long periods. We sometimes age the wines in these barrels for more than 10 years as an average, and it's part of the characteristics of Rioja in general and López de Heredia in particular.
Great, now can we go and taste some?
Yes, of course, always.
I joined the others in the most amazing room I've ever seen. Seriously, if you clean here, you're fired. Those cobwebs are for real. So is the inch-thick mould. So, what are we drinking?
Well, this is a 1973 white. Part of the history of Rioja was making white wines.
And how would you describe it?
My grandfather never allowed us to describe the flavors in a wine because he said that from the moment you describe a wine, you are limiting it. And we are wrong when we try to teach people to understand why by helping them to describe them.
Okay, well, I can let you into a secret. It was fantastic. Now, kings, sleeping kings. Anybody have any idea? It's one of the reasons we're here. We went outside to the river for inspiration.
Right. We're here finally. Next riddle. What's it about?
Well, we need to wake the sleeping kings.
King of Spain, Madrid? No? I mean, we're about 150, 200 miles away from there.
That's true.
Okay, I think I can help, guys. Follow me. Do you remember how I said that Tempranillo is 90% of what's planted in Rioja? So they consider it the king. In fact, it's the king of grapes in Spain. The second part of the riddle, where are the kings sleeping? I think I can help you. Follow me. So this is what I think the answer to the riddle is. Hundreds and thousands of bottles in barrel of Tempranillo slumbering in the underground cellar.
Absolutely. So to wake the sleeping kings, we just need to open a barrel of the wine.
And there it is.
Yeah.
Well done, guys, you got it.
Superb. Well done.
You got it.
That's
Where's the corkscrew?
I'm Grand Reserver. I have to be matured for at least 5 years, of which 2 must be spent in oak barrels. And I look down on him.
I am Reserver. I must be matured for at least 3 years, of which 1 must be in an oak barrel. Therefore I look up to him, but I look down on him.
I'm Crianza. I have to be matured for at least 2 years, 1 of which must be in an oak barrel. So I look up to him, but I look down on him.
I'm Hoven. I'm less than a year old, and I know my place.
What about these riddles?
Okay. Sciri secreta hominum oro seco. This means you must discover the men with the dry lips. Now then, the Camino takes us due west to what looks on the map like a high mountain country. Now, west and a little bit southwest of Rioja, I think there's a couple of vines here. This can really only be one area.
It has to be
Ribera del Duero.
Ribera del Duero it is then. How do you even start with a riddle like that? Our hosts at Bodega Ciar de Silos had a pretty good idea of an answer.
To solve the riddle of the men with dry lips, we've come here to Ribera del Duero, to the winery of my friend Emilia, to learn about the use of this, a perron. Emilia, can you explain?
Of course. The perron is a vessel that is used always through mainly the vintage and social events, and the idea is that all the workers that are selling a hard day's work just have a sip each and then pass it to each other. And then it's also used when we go for a picnic or to share a bite, and everyone, as an aperitif, just share a perron. And my brother, which is the expert, will show you how to do it. Oscar, enséñales cómo se bebe a porrón aquí.
Salud.
Salud.
And there we go. I think we can see he's got dry lips.
Yeah.
Hey, that was supposed to be for you. Hey, someone get that perron off that man.
So, you know how it is when you need to perform. You're in front of some people, perhaps there's a special lady in bed with you, and you just can't. Well, that's what it's sometimes like. On a completely different note, sometimes it's a lovely sunny day and you want some sparkling wine, maybe a fine bottle of champagne you've got in the cellar, maybe something that a friend's brought you, maybe you've got plans for later on in the evening, but you want that wine delivered with just a little bit more panache, a little bit more flair. Perhaps you really want to be just like a corsair in Napoleon's army. What you need to do is indulge in a little bit of sabrage. So, what you're going to need is a knife. Sorry, it's not a knife. That is a knife. Anyway, so, first up you're going to need to remove the foil. I suggest doing this with as much expedience as you can master. Then remove some of the capsule, just to stop yourself from really causing any great damage. Then you want to find the seam that runs around the bottle. There we go. Then take your knife, find the seam that runs down the back of the bottle. There should usually be one on both sides. I think this is the slightly larger one. And then ideally you get this in one go with a and then when that doesn't work, I suggest you find a larger knife and just take the top off.
Fidelum nunquam requiem. This is where the faithful never sleep.
Okay, it's talking about the faithful that never rest. So the faithful are clearly the pilgrims who are on the path, on the Camino to Santiago.
Exactly, but as we know, legend has it the last clue on the map takes you not only to the place but the time of year. If it's where the pilgrims are, it must be Santiago de Compostela. But when do the pilgrims never rest?
Well, when it's hot and thirsty, which is during the festival, they stay up all night.
They stay up all night during Fiesta. Next week is the annual Fiesta de Santiago de Compostela. That's where we have to be, and we have to be there then.
Well, that's where we've got to go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
The Camino de Santiago is a network of pilgrim routes going across southern Europe that converge on the town of Santiago de Compostela, bringing pilgrims and devotees across northern Spain and through the wine regions of Navarra and Rioja. The pilgrim route has been resurrected as both a path for the devout and, in some ways, a tourist attraction. The legend of Santiago goes back to Saint James the Apostle, who was beheaded by King Herod, and legend has it his body was taken to the town of Santiago, where his remains were buried under what is now the main cathedral. Don't you hate that moment in a restaurant, right at the start of the meal, when the waiter or sommelier comes over and asks you to taste the wine? It's nerve-wracking, even for people in the wine industry. It's a moment of tension. So, I'm going to tell you 3 little tips that will help you with that moment of tension. Tip 1. The sommelier doesn't need to be standing next to you when you taste it. It's your opinion of the wine, so you're perfectly entitled to ask them to give you a couple of minutes and come back. The second they walk away, the tension drops immediately, and that's so important. Tip 2, you have to know what you're being asked to taste the wine for. Now, you're not being asked whether you like it or not. Basically, if you order a wine off a list and there is someone like a sommelier or a wine waiter there, if you didn't know what the wine was going to be like, stylistically, for example, they're there to be asked. So they aren't saying, do you like this wine or not? And if you taste it and you don't like it, that's a different issue. What you're being asked to test for is if the wine is faulty. And the main fault in wine is cork taint. Now, cork taint, or a wine being corked, doesn't mean it's got a bit of cork floating in it, yeah? What it means is that there's a chemical in cork that can sometimes react with a wine and cause an off flavour of damp cardboard or mouse droppings or something like that, just something damp and unpleasant. So, that's what you're testing the wine for. Thirdly, how to taste. Well, you do not need to be a wine expert to spot cork taint, believe me. Let me give you a little analogy here. Imagine you go away for the weekend and you come back late on a Sunday night. You get up on Monday morning, you want to make some cup of tea, and you open up the milk that's been in the fridge all weekend and you smell it to see if the milk's okay or not. Now you know, when milk's off, you just go, oh, like that. It's the same with cork taint. You will know, you'll instinctively know, your body will tell you, it won't taste fruity or nice. So just put some wine in the glass, give it a smell. If it's really badly corked, you won't want to go any further, but if you're not sure, just give it a taste. 99% of wines in restaurants are made to be fruity and enjoyable. And if it's not fruity and enjoyable, there's something wrong with it. Finally, if there is something wrong with it, I always say to the sommelier, there's just something wrong with this wine. I never get into the detail of whether it's corked or oxidised or some other problem, because the second you say it's corked, suddenly you're opening it up for a debate or a discussion, and you don't want to go down that route. So you just say very politely, there's something wrong with this wine. Now, often they'll offer you a different bottle or to choose again, because maybe they think you don't understand the wine. If that's the wine you wanted to choose in the first place, order it again. So there you go, 3 little tips to lower the tension of the moment when the sommelier asks you to taste the wine.
Well, you've got In Sepulcro Aciet Sapieta, which means the house of the lazy fisherman.
After several days hard drinking, we finally reached Santiago de Compostela, the home of the legendary Rioja Scrolls.
And oh my God, look at that.
That is incredible.
Oh my God, we're finally here. We found the shrine of Saint James the Apostle. So the last riddle on the map said we have to go to the house of the unlucky fisherman. When Jesus first met St. James, he'd had a night of unlucky fishing. So it has to be St. James the Apostle. Here we are at his house. The scrolls must be in there. Try the door. It's closed. What are we going to do? We have to go in there. It says, search the house of the unlucky fisherman. How are we supposed to find the last resting place of the scrolls
Hang on a second.
if the house of the saints is closed?
In sepulcro jacet sapienta. What?
So it's telling us to go to the house of the unlucky fisherman.
But in Latin, the word for house also means shell.
It means shell. Like this shell, the scallop shell. The shell of the apostle. Oh my God, it's worth a go.
As a peasant labourer working in the vineyard all day, one can work up quite a thirst. Sometimes, though, one doesn't have any glasses. At this point, I recommend the art of punting. Refreshing and delicious.
Rioja is in northern Spain.
This is Justin Knock, Master of Wine.
And this is Tim Wildman, Master
Of Wine, yep.
Fuck off, will you? Stop fucking prompting me. I will say it.
A knife? Here's a knife.
That's not a knife, that's a spoon.
Well, I see you've played knifey spoony before.
Next week is the annual Fiesta de Santiago de Compostela. That's where we have to be, and we have to be there then.
Well, that's where we've got to go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Whatever you do, fellas, don't cross the streams. Hey!
Break its neck first. Probably need to stun it and knock it into submission. Some people think you need a corkscrew, but a real man drinks from the bum. I'm not fucking drinking from that. Do we do a cut there and try that again?